People love to talk about the 1970s like it was all disco balls, bell-bottoms, and loud music. Like it was some carefree party decade that never really meant anything. But that's not how it felt when you were actually there. Back then, you didn't wake up thinking you were living through history. You were just trying to get through the day, and then somehow make it to the night. I remember standing on a street corner in New York one night, not really knowing where I was going, just a name scribbled on a piece of paper. No sign on the door, no line, just a dull metal entrance and the sound of bass leaking through the walls. I hesitated before going in. Everyone did. Because once you stepped inside, you were stepping into something that didn't exist anywhere else. What most people don't realize is that some of the biggest cultural changes of the last 50 years didn't start on television, in politics, or in boardrooms. They started late at night, after midnight, in rooms with no signs outside, in places you only heard about if someone trusted you enough to tell you. Nightlife wasn't about being seen. It wasn't about status. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about belonging. Before VIP lists, before bottle service, before everyone carried a camera in their pocket, there were underground clubs that felt more like shelters than businesses. I remember the feeling the moment the door closed behind you. The sound changed. The air changed. Even the way people looked at each other was different. In the early 70s, disco wasn't mainstream. It wasn't respected. It wasn't even considered real music by a lot of people. It lived in places where people didn't have many options during the day. Black communities, gay communities, artists, outsiders. Those clubs didn't ask questions. They didn't care who you were, where you came from, or who you loved. All that mattered was whether you respected the room and the music. I remember standing by the wall my first time inside one of those places, arms crossed, trying not to look nervous, watching everyone else move like they already knew something I didn't. Then someone brushed past me, not apologizing, just smiling, and suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. The bass hit your chest before you even realized your body was moving. The heat, the sweat, the smell of smoke, cheap cologne, perfume, all mixed together. At first, you felt awkward. Then, your shoulders loosened, your feet started moving without permission, and slowly, the outside world disappeared. No politics, no labels, no expectations. Just people moving together in the dark. That's where disco was really born. Not on the radio, not in record stores, but on those dance floors. Paradise Garage was one of those places you didn't just go to, you experienced it. People call it a club, but that word never felt right. For a lot of us, it felt closer to church. I remember the first time the music dropped just right and the whole room shifted at once, like everyone inhaled together and exhaled together. Larry Levan didn't just play records, he watched people. He knew when to push the energy and when to let it breathe. You didn't dance for an hour, you danced until your legs hurt, then kept going, sometimes from midnight all the way until noon the next day. I remember stepping outside once early in the morning, light just starting to creep into the sky, my shirt soaked, ears ringing, and thinking, how does the world just keep going like this didn't happen? Inside, nobody cared how you looked. Nobody cared who you were outside those walls. Inside, everyone was equal. And then everything exploded. Studio 54. For a brief moment, and I mean brief, the center of the universe wasn't a country or a city. It was one block in Manhattan. I remember standing in that line, watching people get turned away without explanation. Beautiful people, rich people, gone in seconds. When you got inside, it felt unreal. You'd look to one side and see someone you recognized from magazines, and on the other side, someone who worked a regular job and just wanted to dance. I remember glitter in my hair days later, still finding it, like proof it actually happened. Bianca Jagger on a white horse. Andy Warhol drifting through the room like he belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The moon and the spoon hanging above us, watching everything. It was glamorous. It was excessive. It was intoxicating. And deep down, we all knew it couldn't last. What people forget is this. Studio 54 was the peak, not the foundation. The real culture had already been built underground. Out west, San Francisco had its own rhythm. The Endup didn't care about the clock. You'd lose track of days in there. I remember sitting on a curb outside once, sun coming up, people laughing like they hadn't slept in days. Nobody wanted to go home, because home felt smaller after nights like that. And while disco was about unity and release, something else was growing at the same time. Something angrier. Down in a grimy basement in Hollywood, the Masque was tearing everything apart. I remember the smell of damp concrete, the sound bouncing off the walls, the feeling that anything could happen and probably would. Punk wasn't asking for permission. It wasn't trying to be accepted. It was raw, messy, honest. If disco was about losing yourself together, punk was about screaming who you were. As the 70s faded, new identities found their space in the night. Goth clubs felt quieter, heavier, more introspective. People dressed like their insides finally matched their outsides, and no one laughed. And when disco finally lost its grip on the mainstream, the spirit didn't disappear. It transformed. Acid house parties, warehouses, fields. I remember following someone's car, not knowing where we were going, trusting that the music would be there when we arrived. No ropes, no celebrities, no cameras. Just sound systems and strangers becoming one crowd. It felt like a return to the beginning, when the night belonged to the people inside it. Looking back now, I realize those clubs weren't just places to party. They were laboratories for culture. They taught us how to exist together, how to express ourselves, how to feel less alone. That's why the 70s still matter, because the most powerful movements don't start in the spotlight. They start in the dark, with music and with people who just needed a place to be themselves. If you were there, you don't need this explained. You felt it. And if you weren't, now you understand why people still talk about it.